Welcome to Gapology Radio with your hosts Mark Tinas and Brian Brockhoff, authors of the leadership development books Gapology, Imbar, and Speed of Purpose. At Gapology, our purpose is to help leaders achieve their greatest potential. To learn more about our groundbreaking books and training services, visit our website, gapology.org.
Hey everybody, welcome to Gapology Radio. One primary way of creating team engagement is by creating common language, processes, and methods that everyone, especially your leadership team, knows, believes in, and acts upon. And a great way to quickly get everyone on the same page with Gapology is to have them go through our short e-learning course on udemy.com. This course is super concise with bite-sized videos and short activities that help them consume the methods we discuss here on the podcast. For more details, you can find all the links on our website, gapology.org. And as for tonight, we'll continue discussing our new series on engagement. In our previous episode, we kicked off the series with a conversation on creating an engagement rhythm. And tonight, we'll dive into creating engagement right from the start with teaching and mentoring. So let's go ahead and get the show rolling with Mark Tinas. Hey, Mark, how you doing?
Good, Brian. How are you?
I am excellent, and I'm super excited for tonight. I love discussing anything around training or teaching or any of those kinds of things. And, with the last episode, we started talking about engagement and creating engagement. And I think, having a good training structure, a good teaching structure is a great way to do that. And in the last episode, we talked about rhythm. And part of that rhythm, I think, for leaders who really want to excel is to spend time here, really spend time looking at your teaching, your mentoring, the things that you do on a regular basis in your organization. And so this is a little bit different than training, I would say. This is more in the teaching root solution in Gapology. But I think there's some really great tips that we can give them from Gapology on this one. What do you think?
Well, if you want engagement, you want to invest in your team. You want to spend time with them. You want to give them the teaching and mentorship that they need to excel in their role. That creates engagement. It's off the charts engagement. You could call it a culture of teaching creates engagement that can't be created in any other way. So, No, it's a great topic. It's something for all leaders to think about. Are you doing it? Do you have the capability of doing it? What do you need to do differently? Because it's a total game changer when you look at excellence in execution. Great execution comes through high engagement levels, which comes from this.
Yeah, absolutely. Didn't really occur to me that it's really a culture thing. I think that's a great point. I was thinking it's really that teaching element. But Gapology, it's, we lay it out in a kind of a linear fashion, but they are all connected, all these different root solutions, and focusing on building a culture around teaching. What a great way to drive engagement.
Yeah, leaders really need to look in the mirror, examine their role, and say, okay, what percentage of time am I simply a teacher? And what's the benefit of that? And how that creates a culture, and it also creates a team underneath that leader that knows a lot and can execute in the leader's absence, and or bring all execution to a different level. So it's a big deal. So cultures of teaching create high engagement, period. High engagement, we know, creates better execution, and that creates the results which drive to the bottom line.
Yeah. Yeah. And you could absolutely work backwards through that list you just gave. So if your results are bad, just kind of work backwards through that. And I think you'll land on where teaching might be something that you really need to dive into.
Yeah. The other thing that's complicated this is the remote workforce.
Yeah.
So you're not meeting with the team necessarily face to face regularly, daily, like may have been in the past. So how do you overcome that? And you have to really spend a lot of time on it, because if you do not think about this, if you do not find the gaps that are in the execution, in remote environments, remote work environments, you're missing it, and you can execute at a totally different level when you overcome it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you really have to look at it. Really, what do you want it to be? What do you want that experience to be when you bring on a team member and you're working on trying to develop them and grow them into a world-class performer? Your onboarding experience needs to be world-class, certainly, but everything that you do after that to develop and grow people, to produce the outcomes that you're going after, the expectations you're going after, you really have to design it right from the beginning.
Yeah, and it's different and it's challenging. I met with a senior leader this past week who told me that in interviews, the majority of people they were interviewing for roles wanted to work remotely a minimum of 2 days a week and ideally 3.
Mm-hmm.
So we are dealing with likely an ongoing phenomenon that changes how leaders need to lead, because leading remotely is more difficult. It's not easier. And you have to be very good at teaching and developing mentorship processes that will work remotely.
Yeah, the old processes definitely will not work in the new world that we're living in. That's for sure.
It was a lot easier. It's not easy now.
Yeah.
It's not easy to read body language.
Mm-hmm.
It's just when you're not collaborating face to face regularly, it's hard to understand what the need is, and that's a game changer.
Yeah. Just think how much more difficult communication in general is. To ask a question or to have a short conversation, it's a whole thing. You have to go into your Outlook. You have to schedule a meeting or pop on an instant message through Teams or whatever you have. It's a whole process. You can't just lean over the cubicle and ask the question. It's not as simple. And I think that scales when we talk about things like mentorship programs and development programs, bigger things like that. I think just the difficulty scales along with that.
Agreed.
Yeah. So what kind of tips do you think? Where do we start here?
Well, if you pulled out Gapology and you go through the history that you and I have with major, Fortune 500 and Fortune 100 and Fortune 25 companies, they would tell you to follow the habit ladder.
Mm-hmm.
And the habit ladder is difficult, again, in remote work. So you have to think about it differently. For any of you that don't know the habit ladders in Gapology, it should be the platform for how you design training and mentorship. And it begins with communication. Whatever the process is that you are attempting to achieve habit level in, begins with communication. That likely is the training process. But after that, it needs to be verified. So you have to verify understanding. And in a remote work environment, verifying understanding needs to be thought about and planned out, and needs to likely include, some testing, a number of things that you could include depending on what it is. Then it includes gaining agreement. And agreement on a video screen is a bit different than agreement in person. You need to think about that. But agreement is a big deal. Backing up to communication, most rollouts of a new process or whatever end at communication. They do not include the verification of understanding. In a remote work environment, that's incredibly risky. A low percentage of what was communicated is actually understood. And you need to have methods to overcome that. So again, communication, verifying understanding, gaining agreement. Then there needs to be practice and feedback. And that's really what this segment is about. It's about having mentors in the field somewhere who are achieving practice and feedback with the team to ensure that whatever it is truly understood and truly executed. And that's how you achieve habit level execution, which is, where great results come from.
Yeah, the habit ladder is such a powerful tool. It's also that verification process that we can take as leaders. Are we doing all the things necessary? Have we closed the loops on anything that we're teaching and taking people through? Are we doing all the right steps? It's a great tool for us to reflect on. The thing that was interesting to me though, Mark, is when you were talking about the practice and feedback step on the ladder, that's really where you create the habits, right? So when done in silos, it can create bad habits. So that's why the feedback element is really critical. So how do you think we can put together the right people to provide that feedback? What are your thoughts around that?
Well, within each organization, ideally there are a group of people that have it down. We referenced it in Gapology as knowing, doing, and being, and that those three levels were uniquely different. And you had people that knew how to do it but didn't do it. You had people that could do it but certainly couldn't mentor it. And then the being level really becomes the mentors. So you need to identify those people. They're more important than ever. You need to activate them as mentors for new people in the organization and maybe others. And they really create this practice and feedback loop that can be incredibly powerful in bringing more people beyond the knowing and doing level to the being level, and or to the high level doing, which really is where execution at a great level begins. Mm-hmm. So you need to, as a leader, consider mentorship more important than ever, because after the Zoom call ends, the phone calls need to happen, and there will be many questions asked and answered by those mentors. Hey, I was just on the Zoom call, but I didn't understand this, and this. Can you help me? That's a big deal. And that has to happen in today's environment. And it is often invisible to the leader. They're not going to disclose to the leader that they didn't get it. They'll say, oh, yeah, it was great. Thank you. Well done.
Yeah.
Not true. Not great execution. So those mentors really provide a zone of excellence that the leader is not going to see and or understand. So you need those leaders that are the mentors on the team that help the whole team move forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting. One of the clients that we've worked with, one of the best things that we've done with this group is to create a team of what we called ambassadors. So these were their trainers, their team of trainers, but they're not just trainers. They really they went through extra training on Gapology, and they really believed in developing the team. They really cared about developing the team. And we spent a lot of extra time with them, just getting them up to speed on the methods and all that. But it wasn't even about that. I mean, that was part of it, certainly. But, being at that being level was really the key element there. And they're doing a fantastic job.
Yeah, and that's where engagement comes from.
Mm-hmm.
So you can think about the value of the team below them, how they feel valued, how they have improved in their performance, how they feel that the organization cares about them. I mean, what an investment to create a team of ambassadors to help the team perform at a different level.
Right.
That feels good when you're on that team.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great point.
You know you matter.
Yeah.
You know you matter when you've hired, when the company has hired an ambassador of in essence execution to help me be really great at what I do. So that drives engagement.
Yeah. Yeah. When you look at creating an onboarding and developmental experience that's world-class, that's the type of investment, not just from a dollar standpoint, but really from a focus standpoint that a lot of companies don't do. But we've seen firsthand with this particular organization that investment of focus around growing their team, developing their team, is really has made a big difference.
Yeah, and people can go to work anywhere today. There's jobs everywhere.
Yeah.
What's going to set you apart? This is teaching, mentorship, onboarding. You're compared against their prior employer. You're compared against the peer that they have that just went to work somewhere else. It's talked about. So how are you going to be the best? How are you going to create a culture? One of the keys that we found is that when the leaders in an organization consider their role as teachers, the leaders consider themselves teachers. That creates a teaching culture. And in a teaching culture, mentorship happens. It's everywhere. And leaders teach, and the team gets better, and the team gets better, and they get better, and the whole organization moves forward, and execution, of course, is great. So
yeah,
you've got to think about these things, because it's different today. The team can quit today and go work somewhere else. So don't kid yourself about that, and become great, and work towards creating a teaching culture, because in that culture, learning happens, mentorship happens, and of course that all leads to great engagement and great execution.
Yeah, something else that occurred to me is a lot of times what we've seen is that the people that are chosen to be mentors are the best workers. Okay, so not necessarily the ones with the skill to mentor others, to provide honest, encouraging feedback, those types of things. They're just the best worker. And I'm not saying that they couldn't be, but they're chosen based on that merit alone. So what I would also recommend is really spend time developing first of all, choosing your teachers, your mentors, spend time with them, learn what their skills are, what their desire to mentor is. Don't take it for granted. Spend time doing it. I think any effort that you spend there will pay you back tenfold.
Yeah, agreed fully.
Yeah. Just picture putting somebody in that role that's grudgingly compliant on the commitment ladder.
Yeah, the commitment ladder, which is in Gapology, is a big deal. So as you choose your mentors, you'd have to have the ladder in front of you, but genuinely compliant and or committed are the levels at which you want your mentors to be. And you need to be careful to choose the right mentors. If you choose the wrong mentors, you can destroy the team. So just think about that. It is a big deal.
Yep, absolutely.
The other thing to think about is certification. So in certain roles, in certain processes, consider certification. What certification does, which implies testing, for a given role or a given competency. What certification does is it makes it important, and it creates a level of recognition around it as well, but it allows you to know that they have the basic skills for that role. So certainly, depending on your organization and the types of roles, consider certification as something that really matters. At the end of the day, though, great execution is really dependent upon a teaching culture where leaders consider themselves teachers. That drives execution off the charts. It puts the leader in a caring role that the team appreciates, and they want to stay there. They can't find it elsewhere. It is hard to come by. You've got to be great at training, and you should design all training, underline that, by the habit ladder. It's got to equal the habit ladder. So you need to understand that from Gapology. And then you need to look at ongoing mentorship. How do we engage ongoing? How do we continue to train ongoing and really make it work? And mentorship's a big deal. And again, the knowing, doing, being ladder in Gapology gives you great insight into that. So all of that equals a culture with high engagement and driven by learning and teaching and mentorship. And you'll be unbeatable.
Yeah.
What do you think, Brian?
Yeah. Yeah. What a differentiator. Like you said, people can go work anywhere, but what a differentiator having an engaged workforce is, and having a mentorship and teaching environment, culture that, your team is proud to work for. That totally would differentiate you.
Well said.
Okay. All right. Well, excellent job, Mark, as always.
Thank you, Brian, as always, and great job on your piece and your design of our podcast.
Well, thank you so much. All right. Well, you have a wonderful week. I will talk to you later.
All right. Talk to you soon.
Okay. Bye. All right. That'll do from here. For more information on Gapology, head on over to our website, gapology.org. Everyone have a fantastic week. Talk to you soon.
This has been a Gapology Institute production. Visit us at gapology.org.